later in telegraph work. And then they found that every time the sun came up, its performance was changing. And when they gave it a serious investigation, they were able to actually produce a graph that shows how slow it is to respond to light. It takes like 5 seconds to max out, and then fades off again as you get to about another 10 seconds. So that was used in a system by this man in the picture, Professor Korn, and he used what he called the compensated selenium system. And the selenium devices S1 and S2, you can see they pass a high-intensity light through a transparency image on a cylinder, being advanced like a phonograph cylinder, and then it's reflected off the prism to light the selenium. And he got around that long response curve by having, after the signal passes through, to be projected through those magnets on a little wiggling string they put in front, that the light would then come to hit another selenium cell, which cut it off, so that you had a sharper curve than what you see in the picture there. But even though he was able to send nice pictures, you're still looking at still images. So that dream of sitting back and watching television is still a little bit down the road. No moving images yet. So the next development was Paul Nipkow and his disk. That was a system that produced with the diagram. You can see that he has selenium cells picking up the light reflected off an image, going through the spiral, and then light going through. Low, in the same way to produce an image on the screen. And Nipkow was actually interviewed when he was 72 years old, and he tells about working on his project, his favorite project, the televiser, when he was a poor young student. And he says that when he was
put it down, okay.
cold and hungry on a Christmas holiday, when he recognized that his invention would work, he jumped up and down, danced around the room until his landlady thought he was possessed. So suddenly he wasn't hungry anymore, gay, rich, and happy, it says. He never could afford to make anything out of his system. He did apply for a patent and looked at trying to improve it over years. But the first real use of the Nipkow disk was pickup tube. You need those are generators for scanning, and then a line to send both vertical and horizontal scanning and the signal to another tube on the other side. There was, and this was publicly discussed. It wasn't a secret plan, so everybody knew about it. It only had one problem. There were no components like these that he could make anything with. So it just stayed an idea, but other people were starting to build and investigate the components you would need. This is an early Braun tube on the top, where an aperture in the center, which was one of the first times they were doing something, so that it would go through the hole to basically make a smaller image on the phosphor screen. And then the later one, they started adding deflection plates so that you can then, by applying potential to the plates, move the dot around on the screen. This is a more complete one called the Winelt tube. Winelt invented the cylinder that's on the top there, which has a voltage applied to it over there to better focus it. And they also started using a heated filament, which reduced the amount of high voltage they needed to operate the tube, got it into the thousands instead of 100,000. And one of the first to make use of that kind of tube was Boris Rosing, the Russian scientist, professor, inventor, and if you listen to the Russians, the only inventor of television. But his other claim to fame was he was also Vladimir Zworykin's professor before he left Russia for the U.S. And what he actually did was he made a silhouette image on a mechanical mirror drum and displayed it on a cathode ray tube. So that's actually a hybrid electronic television. And then the next person to come along and make use of some of this was Manfred von Ardon, actually a baron, a wealthy German, and investigated many things in all areas, but self-funded his research in his own laboratory. And he made a flying spot scanner television. This is one of his CRTs, and this is a picture that was in a copy of Television magazine around 1931 or 2 of a system that he actually had and used, where he took a transparency image, was scanning CRT1 with just a blank screen. The image that passed through the transparency went to the photocell, then it was sent over to the second CRT, which would produce the image that you see on the top. And according to what he said in the article, this is a blow-up of it, but that was the actual image from the CRT. So he had a fully electronic closed-circuit kind of system going. Then by 1924, AT&T had developed equipment, also with the idea of sending images by telephone line. This photo was one of 15 that were sent, but the transmission took 2 hours. And AT&T said their research was going on to keep in touch with what was going on with other companies in television. They didn't want to fall behind. So their Dr. Herbert Ives took some steps forward, and he made this neon screen on the top is a bunch of neon tubes all connected, and then behind them would be a metal spiral. And as you triggered the right address for that spiral, through the glass of the neon tubes, it would ignite the light at that one point, and then it would be in that big display box on the bottom. And to make it operate, they had to spin all the contacts for the neon elements down with that big motor assembly on the bottom. So it can be called the boy inventor and the last lone inventor, who conceived of electronic television, as legend goes, as he watched the farm field being plowed. And he did, working on his own with a few people and investors, build a working system using his image dissector, which was able to work in the later versions because what he called a multi-pactor, which is something like a photomultiplier tube. That's a Farnsworth multi-pactor tube on the bottom. Increased the sensitivity, but still didn't get up to what they were able to get sensitivity-wise on the iconoscope. In the other room here, there's a few devices that had good use for what they were monitoring by using image dissectors. So they did keep producing them for a while. So we also needed to make bigger CRTs, and that's something that Alan Dumont, RCA, Farnsworth, and others building CRT televisions were doing. They had to take it from the type that would be on the left there, a laboratory device that would only be good for tens of hours, to something that would be good for thousands of hours and a bigger screen.